thank you so much for coming and being here. And I just want to thank our sponsors for tonight, Cohog Republic, who provided the beer, and Chatham Bars Inn, who provided the appetizers. We're so grateful for their support. And also to our sponsors, our special sponsors tonight, Chatham Light Mussels and Midnight Hour, who are run by Jesse and Abby Rose, who are here. You'll meet Jesse in a little while. He's our guest fisherman. And to Jeremiah Reardon, who is here from Red River BBQ. And so, just to say, so I'm just going to give a little intro on Jeremiah. Jeremiah was born and raised here on the Cape, and he's worked under culinary greats such as Wolfgang Puck and Gray Kunz. He's worked in top restaurants on the west and east coast of the United States and on Cape Cod as well. He's worked at Brewster Fish House, Vares, Grill 43, and now he's most recently the owner and chef at Red River BBQ in Harwich Port. So we're so grateful to have Jeremiah here. And tonight, the topic is mussels. And Jeremiah is going to be preparing a tasting for everyone. And everyone also gets to leave with a sample of mussels provided by Jesse Rose and his Chatham Light Mussels, which is also pretty exciting. So Jeremiah, if you want to take it away and just tell everyone what you're prepearing tonight.
Absolutely, thanks, Bridget. So tonight is going to be a mussel dish, mussels provided by Jesse. They're going to be steamed with a little bit of Texas hot link sausage. For those of you who aren't familiar with Texas hot link sausage, think cumin, beef, pork, a little bit of spice. There'll be some fennel, some tomatoes, some roast garlic, and some leeks. There'll also be a little bit of white wine and a little bit of fish stock. Okay, the fish stock is actually made with cod, and we'll finish it with a little bit of butter and a little parsley on top, and that'll be that. Do you guys have questions about the dish that I could answer? No, you just want to eat it? Right here. Excuse me?
The fish stuff is made with
Cod.
cod.
Yep. In the back?
Where's the best place to get Texas?
Red River BBQ. We make that ourselves. So outside of the restaurant, maybe you might be able to find some at some of the other barbecue restaurants around. Maybe down at Block and Tackle down in Wellfleet, but we do make our own.
So kind of like, would you sell it? Can I walk in there and buy it?
We could sell it to you cooked, yes. If you wanted to place a takeout order, you could order it by the link if you'd like. You could add it to a brisket plate or a chicken plate or what have you as well. So, you could do like a hot Italian sausage or chorizo or linguiça would work as well. Any sausage that has a little bit of spice to it would work really well. So this is kind of a play on a Portuguese dish called mules na cara plana. We just made it a little bit more barbecue.
Before we let you get back to the kitchen, we wanted to talk a little bit more with you about mussels.
Okay.
I've got some facts up here about how nutritional they are, right?
Okay.
They have more iron than steak. They're low calorie, low fat, lots of omega-3 fatty acids, zinc, folate, all those good things. The other thing we wanted to chat with you about is just general prep of mussels, right?
Okay. Yeah.
How do you make sure that you've got live mussels?
Yep.
Right? What are some of the pitfalls and how do you make sure that your mussel dish comes out fantastic?
So typically, the mussels that Jesse brought me were really, really, really clean. They had the beard off of them, and those of you who aren't familiar with what a beard is on a mussel, it's a little tuft of seaweed that's still sticking out. And usually, if you're going to let mussels sit for, if they're going to be used for sale, the beard's usually left on them a little bit longer, so that way they stay alive a little bit longer, at least in my experience. But since we were cooking them so quickly here, Jesse brought them to me, cleaned and purged. Is everybody familiar with what purging is? Okay, so for those of you that aren't, purging is a way of getting the grit out of the shellfish, and Jesse's got a really ingenious way that he does it. So typically, to make sure that they are still alive, if a mussel's closed, it's alive, okay? If it's open a little bit and you tap it and it closes back up again, it's still alive. If you tap it and it doesn't close up again, you don't want to eat it. Okay? Does that do it?
That does it, I think.
Okay.
The purging is important because mussels are filter feeders, right? They're
Yep.
going to filter out the plankton and the sediment in the water, and so that's why you want to put them in clean water and get all that
Yep.
grit out.
Absolutely.
How long should you put them in the water?
Usually about a half hour, and then you take it out, refresh them again, unless you're doing it in salt water where the water's moving and there's fresh oxygen coming through it, then you can purge them as long as you want. But if you're doing it in fresh water, like in a bin like we would do at the restaurant, you don't want to leave them submerged for too long because they'll die.
So less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can
Or
take
you
the
can
water, you can take them out of the water. Don't pour the water off. You're just going to pour the sand back onto them, pull them out of the water, put them in another container. And then if you still feel there's grit on them, fill them up with water again. Do the same process over again.
I also sometimes add salt, kosher salt, to my pot of water.
Yep.
so
Some people use kosher salt. Some people, I mean, for steamers, some people use cornmeal because they think it's sand and they spit out the sand and eat up the
Fill up
cornmeal.
Question, yeah?
What's the easiest way to get the beard off? I use pliers, but I figured
Typically, I use one of these. I use a towel and just wiggle, pull. Yep. If it really doesn't want to come off, if you have like a clam knife, that's a good way to scrape it off too.
All right. Do you want us to walk us through the techniques? They all have your recipe in front of
Yep.
them. If you need your recipe in front of you, there's the
No, I
copy
think we're
here.
okay. So what we're going to do today is the sausage has been cased and smoked already, so it's cooked. We're going to take the sausage, we're going to put it in a pot with a touch of olive oil, and we're going to get a nice like sear on it. Caramelization. Everybody's familiar with why we caramelize things. So when the process of caramelization is bringing sugar out of any protein. There's natural sugar in any protein or any vegetable. When you get that to the edge, you create flavor. You create depth of flavor. So we're going to caramelize that. Then we're going to add in some of the leeks, some roast garlic, and some of the fennel. For this dish at the restaurant, what I did with the tomatoes and the fennel is, everybody familiar with the cooking method called sous vide? Okay, so I actually find sous vide, sous vide, the French translation of sous vide means under vacuum, okay? So you vacuum seal whatever you want to cook, and then you have a thermal immersion circulator which keeps an exact temperature, and then you cook at that temperature. So you get perfectly cooked vegetables, you get perfectly cooked proteins. So in this instance, we sous vide both the fennel and the tomatoes at 185 degrees for different lengths of time. Just because we're trying to do this for so many people, I've got to have those vegetables cooked a little bit ahead of time so I can do a mass amount of it. For you folks at home, you're fine just to use raw vegetables. So you fold in your raw vegetables after you sear the sausage. Then you put in your mussels, deglaze with a little bit of white wine, let that reduce a little bit. So you want to get the alcohol out of it so it doesn't taste like you're eating a glass of wine. And then you hit it with some of the fumet. As soon as the mussels open, they're done. You're going to want to spoon those out into a bowl, and then you're going to stir in some butter. Check your seasoning with salt and pepper. Typically use fresh ground pepper. The reason you use fresh ground pepper is dried pepper has no oil left on it anymore. So fresh ground pepper means you just use your pepper mill that you have on your counter. That's all. You're going to get a much better, fresher flavor out of it. Season, pour it back over the mussels, and you're good to serve it.
And do they cover that pot when they're cooking the mussels? Are you steaming them?
Typically, you can, depending on how much liquid you have. I usually find that I don't need to, but if you feel you want to, that's completely acceptable. Absolutely, yeah.
Can you tell us about fumet?
Fumet. So fumet is fish stock. In this instance, we used cod bones. So most fish bones, like animal bones, have blood in them. So what we do is we blanch the cod bones, and by blanch I mean we cover them in cold water, bring them up to a simmer, and then we strain that off. We save the bones, get rid of that liquid that's all cloudy and has stuff floating on top of it. We get rid of that, and then we put fresh water over it with a white mirepoix. Which white mirepoix has onions, fennel, leeks, garlic, thyme, parsley, bay leaf, fennel seed, peppercorn. Bring that up to a simmer. Cook it for like 45 minutes. Don't cook it for hours, because then you just get overcooked tasting stock. So that's why we cook it for a short amount of time. The clearer it is, the better. That's fumet.
If they don't want to make their own fish stock, where would one get fish stock?
I believe you can probably get it at Max Seafood here in town. That would be my best guess. If you want to use a vegetable stock, that's perfectly acceptable too. You want to use a chicken broth, you can. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but vegetable stock would be perfectly acceptable.
Excellent. Any other questions about the preparation of the recipe?
I cook them in white wine, yeah. White wine, herbs, a little bit of garlic and onions, fresh garlic, onions, and finish with a little bit of butter. It's going to taste great. I mean, it's all about how fresh the shellfish is, which in this case, incredibly fresh.
For someone that is allergic to wine,
Yep.
beer or
Yeah,
something else?
you could do beer. Yeah, you could do drunken mussels. Yeah.
Are there other fish that are from around here that you would recommend or not recommend for a fish stock? Like I catch bluefish, and I'm always nervous about using bluefish to make a stock.
No, you want whitefish. Typically, your flatfish would work. Striper would work. Striper is a little bit more bloody, which is what you don't want. But if you blanch the bones ahead of time, you're going to get a nice clear stock. But yeah, your flatfish, your halibut, your sole, any one of the soles, gray, lemon, fluke, all work great. The original fumet, if you listen to the French, is Dover sole. But they think they invented everything, so.
What about hake or black sea bass?
That would work great. Black sea bass makes a great one. Hake, like the flatfish, you don't necessarily even need to blanch the bones. It's the more the fish that have a little bit more blood in them that you want to blanch the bones. So hake, I would blanch the bones for them too.
Before we let you get back to the kitchen, I know
Yep.
you're anxious to get back there. What about other techniques for cooking mussels?
Other techniques for cooking mussels. You could smoke them if you wanted to. You could smoke them and pull the meats, and you can make a soup out of them if you like.
How would they go about smoking mussels?
Your grill at home. You could put charcoal briquettes down. Like say you have like a Weber, like the classic Weber, tub. Put your charcoal briquettes down, and then some smoking chips on top of it. And then you take your clean mussels, put them right on top of the grill, and then cover it, and they'll smoke right open. And then you just pull them out and eat them.
Okay.
Really tasty.
How long?
Till they open. Maybe mussels cook very quickly. Mussels are probably no more than 5 to 8 minutes max.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'll get little rubber bands if you cook them too much.
Nobody wants little rubber bands.
Nobody wants little rubber bands.
I think that's a general trend with cooking mussels, right? You don't want to overcook them.
Correct.
Other techniques? We've talked about steaming, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are my two favorite. I like roasting them. They always seem to get a little too dried out.
Okay.
So that would be the two I would recommend. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
If there
Thank
are
you,
no
guys.
more questions, thank you, Chef. Chef was talking about the beards, right, and cutting them off. And they're actually a thread that the mussels make, and they use them to secure themselves to a solid surface, whether that's rocks or other mussels, and that protects them from waves crashing. They like to live in intertidal areas, and from predators, right? Like if there's a bunch of mussels all growing together, it's harder for a seagull to get in and kill one and eat it. And as he mentioned, you do need to remove the beard. And I have a little video for you that talks about how they actually make these threads. I find it fascinating. I'm a marine biology nerd, so I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. And we're going to jump here. Hang on. Come on. It doesn't want to let me. Let's see.
These California mussels huddle together, hanging onto this rock.
Ignore the fact that they're in California.
But if the tumultuous waves should knock one loose, it's in trouble. Disconnected and all alone is a very dangerous place to be. So it timidly pokes its foot out from between two armored shells. And makes this. The abyssal thread, a springy lifeline. It only takes strand. But now, the mussel is literally hanging on by a thread. It'll keep going until it's made 50 to 100 of these connections, what some call the mussel's beard. It uses it to fasten securely to a rock, preferably next to other mussels. It'll even use its foot to drag itself closer to friends. And why not? They make great neighbors. Sticking together makes it harder for hungry predators and crashing waves to pry them loose. Mussels thrive near the shore, where waves churn up food for them to filter out of the water. If they find a good community, they can stay glued in place for decades, long enough for these barnacles to start using them as furniture. So how exactly does a mussel make abyssal thread? Turns out it has a miniature thread-making factory in its foot. It all happens inside this long groove that works like a mold. Microscopic glands pour in special proteins which fuse together to form the core of the thread. Different proteins surround the core, making a tough, protective coating. To anchor the thread to the rock, the mussel secretes a foamy glue, cementing it in place. The threads are made of similar stuff as the tendons in our bodies that connect muscles to bone. Super strong, but also pliable. The glue it uses to hold on is more than just waterproof. It actually hardens in water. If we could figure out how to make a glue like that, it'd be a game changer for medicine, especially for uses like mending broken bones and closing wounds in delicate surgeries, like the ones doctors do on fetuses in the womb. Now, with their threads all sorted out, the mussels can finally relax. Well, mostly. I mean, you can't blame them for being clingy. They're just a little shellfish.
Some bad puns there. All right, with that, let me get the lights back up. And I am pleased to introduce Captain Jesse Rose of Chatham Light Mussels and Midnight Hour.
All right.
Jesse has the fishing vessels Wide Load, which is the mussel boat, as well as Midnight Hour and Nemesis, where he catches sea scallops and surf clams. And Jesse, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into fishing and whatnot?
Started at a pretty young age. I guess I've done nothing but fishing. I started chartering when I was a young fellow in Mullfleet and Rock Harbor, and started commercial fishing after high school, and here we are, a long time later. It's about all I've ever done, and actually just stopped fishing a little bit in the last year or so, and we've been marketing our products and got a little plant in Chatham now, and we're processing some food, and a little different, switching gears. So.
Yeah. If you've bought sea scallops dockside in Harwich, there's a good chance you bought them from Midnight Hour.
Yes.
All right, so tell us a little bit about where you catch mussels.
So it's in Chatham here, it's all intercoastal waters in Pleasant Bay and the south sides in Stage Harbor and around Oyster River and just outside the horseshoe there. But the video was shot right in front of the lighthouse. From the Chatham Lighthouse towards the fish pier to the north there's some pretty huge mussel beds.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
And we're just right there, a couple hundred feet off the shore, there's mussels, and we go around in circles right there in front of the lighthouse and parking lot. And really short tows. We tow the rake for 30 seconds to a minute and it's full, and we do a few of those, and it's mostly processing. They're pretty thick, they grow on a carpet, so we tow from here to the wall and it's full. It's like they said in the video, they clump up together and it's just like a big carpet of them when they set in.
Did you seed them or?
Nope, this is all natural wild.
All wild.
There's a few different beds in Pleasant Bay. There's 4 or 5 different beds that are all different sizes. The current takes the seed different places, and where they latch on, there's some up by Strong Island and by
Catchapinicket?
Yep, that one. And then down by the rock wall, and a few on the south side too. So they're
I guess they're
Yeah, they spawn out with the right temperature like an oyster or steamer and everything, and they stick and attach to the right bottom sediments, which are different than like a steamer likes a sandy bottom, a mussel likes a rocky or muddier bottom, so they kind of land in different places.
And how large do they have to be for you to?
About 1.5 to 2 years are big enough. About 2 to 3 inches is a marketable size. Like when we process them on the boat, we process right where they grow, so all the small stuff goes right back over the side of the boat. And our machines kind of gauge them, so we get a good call to let those small ones back.
And as we just learned, they can reattach,
Yes,
right? Unlike
unbelievably
an oyster.
fast. we catch them and say the day's over by 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We purge them, and by 6 o'clock the next morning, they're all clumps again. We spread them all out and put them in our special barrels, and overnight they're all clumped back up again. Real finely, but it's like little spider webs. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you use technology, electronics to find them, or do you just, is it all in your head?
No, I mean, I'm very new to this mussel thing. We're only fishing in 10 or 15 feet of water, so on a sunny day you can see blue water with a black strip. You know, I mean, it's a lot of sight finding for the mussels. I mean, compared to a scallop or a sea clam where it's traditional spots or it's a lot deeper water, so you're using more electronics and knowledge. This is all changing, and if you see them over there, you go try. You know, it's.
But if I see a mussel bed that's above the water in low tide, is that still okay to eat?
I believe so, yeah. I've heard different versions of that. I've heard if they come out at low water, they're not all right, but I know in some town, I know Barnstable has a bed that comes out, and they're delicious. They're beautiful mussels. We kind of bounce around from the different beds. Like we're out in front of the Chatham one and in front of the lighthouse now because they're bigger and they grow so quick you don't want them to get too big. So we try to manage that way. You know, the ones in Strong Island are smaller and they'll be better in the fall. So we're trying to get the bigger ones now.
But it takes about a year and a
1.5
half.
to 2 years to a 2-inch, 2.5-inch. They do. They filter feed, and they're the first. They show the signs the first compared to a clam or an oyster or anything like that. And there's actually a big bloom of red tide on the north side right now that came down from Nauset in Pleasant Bay.
Right,
And
so the mussels that you're eating tonight were not harvested in front
Yeah.
of Chatham.
not tonight. It's funny. These ones from Stays Harbor had 0 traces of it, and the ones over at the fish pier were really high.
Yeah.
Which is, Chatham has not been closed for red tide since '05. I mean, it's been a really long time, and some say it's the temperature. I believe there's a lot of digging going on, putting sediment from the fish pier and all the old water in the water, but they're testing every day. We're waiting.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to note if you are a shellfish consumer is that the towns and the state take shellfish very seriously, making sure that the water quality is suitable for harvesting shellfish. So they're out there testing at least weekly. At a time like this when we know there's red tide, they're out there every day to make sure that what you're eating is safe. And if it's not safe, they shut down the area
They're
and nobody's
very,
allowed
very
to harvest.
cautious. Yes, sir.
And Jesse, I read that like oysters, November, December, January, February are really good years, time of the year for mussels. Are they seasonal? Are there times you would stay away from harvesting them?
No, they're good year round. I mean, different times of the year, the yield's better, they're plumper, they're fuller. It's before they spawn. Once they spawn, they kind of rejuvenate for a few months, so they're smaller meats and stuff like that, but they're perfectly edible year round. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
So you do harvest in Barnstable County?
You
Yes.
harvest just in Chatham.
Just in Chatham. These are all Chatham mussels, and you have to live in Chatham and have a Chatham shellfish license. Yep. Yes, sir.
Jesse, how big do you see this fishery becoming? I'm only asking, are you seeing anybody doing any aquaculture, building stocks, sort of?
Mussels are like a worldwide heavy volume fishery. It's really hard for you'd have to have so much space to grow enough mussels. I mean, like on our little boat, we do 100 bushels a day. That's quite a bit, and I mean, it's not even a dent. They do thousands and thousands of bushels. They're a very cheap product. You need heavy volumes, and to grow them, you'd need vast space. They grow them in Canada on vertical lines, but around here, the grants aren't big enough to
I
grow.
think one of the obstacles to growing mussels here in New England and in this area is the vertical lines. The Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries has been very cautious with allowing new aquaculture farms in the area that create more vertical lines because there is so much concern about vertical lines entangling right whales. So there's been a lot of efforts to, like, for instance, to put in new kelp farms, right? And they're not really willing to put those in certain areas because of potential interactions with the right whales.
I tell you, John, though, the mussels do a lot of seeding on their own. I mean, there's been massive beds in Cape Cod Bay for years. I mean, 10 years worth of fishing show up and half a dozen boats get to fish on them for a long time. There's been an industry in Chatham forever. You know, there's always been a handful of guys that do it. Certain times it's better, sometimes it's worse, but they always pop up in different areas. They show up.
What's the usual depth?
The ones in Chatham, it's shallow. It's Pleasant Bay. I mean, up to 20, 25 feet. I mean, we've caught some offshore mussels when we're scalloping that we harvest, and those are 90 foot, 60 foot deep. So, I mean, they do live deeper. Yes, ma'am.
Is the taste different depending on where you harvest it,
Like an oyster?
like oysters?
I don't know. I mean, the ones I haven't tried a lot of different mussels. I've tried them from the north side and the south side of Chatham, and the pollock rip ones. They're all a mussel's a mussel. You know, they're pretty similar, honestly. You know, not like oysters where they really taste like the bottom they're in. You know.
Maybe if you didn't purge them, they might taste like the dirt that was
Truth. Yes, sir.
Are the restaurants and retailers in the area supportive of your industry?
Very much so. I mean, I'm just, like I said, I just brought this new mussel business a few months ago, and we're just trying to, the guy I bought it from did a lot more wholesale and filling tractor trailer up with them, and not doing so much the retail end of it. And we've been selling our scallops. We hope to sell them mussels with our scallops at the dock and to our restaurants we deal with and our fish markets. So they've all been taking our mussels too, you know.
All right, there's going to be plenty of time to ask Jesse questions, but we do have some more pictures and videos for you guys. And Jesse's going to talk us through what it means to go harvest a mussel.
This is just a standard little 3-foot box dredge. We tow them along the bottom. It rides flat on the bottom like a car, and it barely scrapes the surface. The blade's set down about 1/2 inch. That's about every 30 seconds to a minute comes back full. Right in front of the lighthouse. You can see the lighthouse in the background there.
There's another image of the actual dredge. And the town, we'll talk about this a little bit later as well, but the town limits the size of the dredge, right? The maximum size is 36 inches across.
Yep. There's,
How many mussels would be in that size container right there, Jess?
well, that's probably 10 bushel. I mean, it's 500 or 600 mussels by the time they're all culled. There's some rocks, there's some debris, there's smaller mussels, but.
Did you ever find anything really absurdly interesting?
Oh, I've been looking for treasure all my life. We caught a GoPro a couple years ago that was great. 150 feet of water, we caught a GoPro that was a picture of a sunrise, a tuna rod, and then bubbles. It was great.
So when the mussels come up, they look like this, right?
Yep, all clustered together with their beards all intertwined. There's some gravel and settlement and old shells and crabs and
There's some
bottom life.
Looks like some seaweed there.
Yep, a little seaweed, barnacles.
And so what else happens on the boat besides dragging?
The guys, we go around in circles until we have a good, you know, we try to do it 4 or 5 times, piles like that, and that's about our bushel limit for the day. We can fit 50 blue totes, which is our 100 bushels. So we load the boat 4 or 5 times, and the machine in the background, it's the first stage of declumping them.
Yep. So here's the wheel for the tumbler.
This is a hydraulic machine that's made out of stainless steel. It's got one barrel that's full of water with big fingers that go around, and it washes them, and then it comes out into that cage that spins, and that's where it kind of culls the smaller and the bigger and the shells. The smaller and the debris goes outboard, and the mussels come forward. What's that? Yep, they come out. It's just the starting stages of cleaning them. I believe it's 2 inches. I mean, our machines are set up, I mean, we have different size cages for all the different sizes. We like to throw the smaller ones back, you know. They grow so quick in Chatham, it's unbelievable.
So you do this on the boat, but you also do it again on land?
Yep,
or-
this is just the primary. I mean, if we're selling in bulk, we put them right from the machine into totes into the trailer truck, and the place we sell them to in Rhode Island, they process them, they purge them, they send them through their machines. But then back at our shop, we have the same kind of machine. It's a debiercer machine that you'll see a video
We'll see
later
it in
of it
a
working.
second,
But
yeah.
this is our little wide load boat. It's 25 foot wide by 11 foot wide, so it's just a cute little thing.
And how do you get those totes off up
We
onto
have
the fish pier?
we have an unloading boom that we unload into the parking lot, and then we put them on pallets, 4 high. So we get 12 on a pallet and wrap it. So there's 24 bushels in a pallet, and we pallet jack it into our truck that has a lift gate. We have a 26-foot box truck, and down the street.
All right, we talked about how they clean the water. So this is your shop, right, in
Yep.
Commerce Park?
So this is how they look when we bring them back to our shop. This is after purging one night. They're all kind of clustered back up again, all full of cobwebs. They're very soft cobwebs at that point. Those are our fabulous scallops, of course. So this is our production line. It's coming out of the purge barrels into a little conveyor belt, goes up the conveyor belt into our debiercer machine, it's called. And that has water to it, and it's full of stainless steel rollers that kind of, like a face shaver, the little beards get caught in the shavers, and it shaves the beards. It goes up the conveyor all messy and comes down onto the table ready for restaurants and dinner. They come out beautiful.
So if they buy mussels from you, they don't ever have to debeard or purge their mussels,
they're
right?
ready. They're ready to go in the pan.
Can I borrow your machine?
Yeah. Yep.
So if you remove the beards then, how long do they keep?
I mean, out of a debiercer machine, you do get, if you don't run it through the machine, you get a little bit longer. But 10 days, all packed in ice, they're fine. I mean, most of the beards get shaven. Only a few actually get plucked out. That's what hurts them. Like if you're doing it at home and you're popping the beards out and pulling them out, they come out of like a little socket, and that's what gives you short shelf life. Like this machine, it's like the whole machine's rollers that go into each other like a face shaver, so the beards just get snipped right off and whacked. It's pretty.
So if you did let them sit in your fridge for a few days, would they grow more beards?
Don't know.
We'll have to try that.
You have to try that.
We'll run an experiment.
They grow in it's amazing how quick when we're purging them. I mean, you go from separate single mussels overnight, they're all just a big soft clump again. It's really amazing. Yep.
Made locally, you make it yourself? How do you buy stuff like that?
On the boat is the Chatham special type tumbler. The guys in Chatham have been perfecting them over years. Huckman used to be here and built them years ago before he moved away. And the fellow that I bought, the Centauro brothers, they've muscled for years in town here, and that's who I bought the mussel business from, is Dominic, and his stuff's tuned right in.
And I'm pretty sure the tumblers that they have were manufactured by Buck Welding and Machine in Commerce Park.
Yep, absolutely.
And how about
The debiercer, that's Canadian. That's a huge money machine that came out of Canada. They have a big mussel industry up there. They have a few specialized. We also have a shaker. If we get into steaming the mussels, we'll shake all the meats out of the shells. So they have a few specialized things.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
If you leave the beard, like if you leave them bearded, is it best to stay in the refrigerator, what, 3 days, 4 days?
Yeah.
Longer if they're bearded, right?
Yeah, a little bit longer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the specifics. I like to eat them as quick as possible. Buy them when you're ready for them.
Well, and I think if you're going to leave them in your fridge for a few days, the longer you leave them, the more you want to be careful to check them, right?
Yeah.
If they're chipped or they're open, like the chef was saying, if you tap them and they close, they're still alive. If they're gapping and they won't close, get rid of them before you cook them.
And the way with all shellfish too, if you put the shellfish in a colander and then put it in like a a bowl full of ice, so they're not sitting in the water, but the ice gets them a lot colder than the refrigerator. The ice really prolongs the shelf life of any seafood.
But you don't want them to
Sitting
be
in the water.
sitting in fresh water because it will
Correct.
kill them, right? So you need to figure out a way to keep them
them.
on ice without letting the ice melt and have them swimming in the water.
How long does it take to reach your daily limit?
We can do it as quick as 2 or 3 hours, or as long as 5 or 6. I mean, depends on the guys that are doing it. I mean, you can do it pretty quick if everything works right. You know, it's all process. How fast that machine goes around, you catch them quick enough, and the resources there. It's just processing them and stacking them, and go for it.
By the time they get to market, regular markets, how many days is that actually from the time you get them up?
We purge them the night before, and then we deliver. We run them that next morning, first thing. Every Thursday we run right now. We'll do it twice in the summer, but they're in the fish markets that afternoon. I mean, in the water in the morning, in the fish markets, and then, you know, that's how we do it. The people we sell to, they purge them for a day or two, then they run them. I mean, mussels are one of the shortest shelf lives. So, I mean, they're out the door within a week or 10 days. And over.
Other fisheries in the area are experiencing a lot of quota reductions, severe restrictions on the fisheries. Are you experiencing any of that? Like the 100 bushels per boat, has that been around for a long time? Is there any move to try and increase it? And
No, that's
how is the Alliance supporting that?
That's a town set daily limit that they think is acceptable. You know, it gives us a chance to harvest them before they get too big, and we're not overfishing them. It seems like there's always mussels. I mean, one of the reasons why we're mussling is I'm a scalloper, and we got cut in half this year, so we're going different routes with our boats. So this is one way we're gonna do it by doing some mussels.
Diversification's important.
The diversification. We got a new thing with our surf clams, which we're really excited about too. It's a plentiful resource. It's right here in the state of Massachusetts. It's underutilized and delicious.
What are surf clams, like the razor?
Sea clams are the big surf clams. They grow inside 3 miles in the state of Mass. It's your chowders, your clam strips, stuffed quahogs, not stuffed quahogs, but stuffed sea clams.
They're called surf?
Yep, the surf clams.
Surf clams. We've got some video footage of that a little bit later as well. I think one of the things to note about shellfish, particularly mussels, is that it's managed by the town, right? In each town that has mussel resources, they set the rules in conjunction with the Division of Marine Fisheries. And so that very close nearshore area, the towns are in charge, and then out to 3 miles, as you said, the state's in charge, and then you get out 200 miles, and that's sort of the regional management councils. And the farther offshore you go, it seems the more complicated the rules and the management get. So it's great that we have this resource locally for folks to diversify into.
Yeah, no, it's from scallop, and we're steaming 8 to 10 hours every day. They catch the scallops here. We can't even drink a cup of coffee before you're fishing. You know, it's 2 different realms.
Tell us what happened about, you said your scallops got cut in half.
Do you just sell to Rhode Island, or are you selling to some of our local purveyors and our local restaurants? And I know when you were doing Harwich port, you were selling to people who would almost subscribe isn't the right word, but
Sign
let
up,
you
yep.
know, and then you.
For sure.
How are you doing the mussels?
Well, we're just getting the mussels going, and we plan on doing it the same way as our scallops. I mean, all the mussels we run ourselves at my shop stay on Cape Cod.
Okay.
They go to our fish markets, they go to our restaurants. We're going to sell them at our farmers markets that we do on Cape and down the dock in Harwich.
Oh, okay.
So that's what we do with ours. I mean, the fish markets, I mean, Clam Man, I go to Falmouth, we go to Wellfleet, we go a bunch of different places, all have the Chatham mussels.
And you're going to be at the Loop, right, on Friday night. So the greenhouse down by the lighthouse that Monomoy Community Services is selling local goods out of. You'll be able to get the mussels and the scallops there. For any of you that are farther up Cape, Saturdays at Four Seas in Hyannis. Okay.
I always thought the orange ones were better.
Yeah.
The orange ones taste better.
Yeah.
The orange ones are female. The white ones are male.
I think it depends which wine you use.
Yeah, I agree.
So as you guys file out in an orderly fashion, there's plenty for everybody. There'll be a table out there with samples. And then on your way out as you're leaving, we have cooler bags with ice packs and a little 2-pound sack of mussels from Jesse.
Thank you.